brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots are using Square to do everything from covering cash flow gaps to expanding to new locations. Wherever your business is growing, Square meets you there.
I'm Josh Christensen, executive producer of Inc. Podcasts, and welcome to From the Ground Up. In this conversation, Diana Ransom spoke with Amy Webb, the founder of Future Today Institute, a consulting firm specializing in strategic foresight. They discuss Amy's presentation on a report her company released on future trends, the importance of not focusing too much on one task or project to the detriment of others, and preparing for uncertainty. Enjoy.
Okay, well, thank you. This is everyone. We're so excited. This is Amy Webb, and we're so thrilled to have you here. Amy is a futurist. She's the founder and CEO of a company called Future Today Strategy Group. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Amy, your company has actually changed names, right? As of 2 days ago?
As of 2 days ago, that's right.
2 days ago. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
What prompted the change?
So I think there's sort of a misconception in organizations about what foresight is and does. Years ago, foresight and strategy were the same discipline. Mm-hmm. And over the years, foresight really became more about pontificating and predictifying and things like that. And it really became divorced from strategy, which became very short term. Mm-hmm. So part of what we are trying to signal is foresight and strategy, which we've always done, strategic foresight, has to bridge closer together.
Okay.
So it's more just sort of putting more, exactly.
Okay. That's great. Well, I caught your talk. So Amy does this almost every year, maybe 17th or 18th year at South by, revealing your Future Trends report. I caught it on Saturday, and apparently this report is 1,000 pages long.
1,000 pages on the nose. That's right.
On the nose. Incredible. So that's a lot. You should all internalize it and read it and really take it into account. But during your talk, you said something that really sort of stuck with me, is this concept of using a block, and you had everybody in the audience sit on the block, and it's like a metaphor for this stone in your shoe concept. And I wonder if you could kind of take us through that right now. Obviously, you don't need to spend a ton of time on it, but
sure. So I think everybody at some point has had a small stone in your shoe, and when that happens, it's not life-threatening, but when that happens, it draws your attention away from everything else, and all you can think about is that small irritant in your shoe, and it creates a cognitive challenge. Mm-hmm. Your brain starts laser focusing on that one thing, and you start to lose sight of the other things you would normally be paying attention to. So this stone in your shoe effect really describes what's happening right now in business and in government, where we are laser focused on every single different tiny little thing that's happening, whether that's the latest who did what in the White House, or the latest what's happening with AI. And some of these things are important. Mm-hmm. Some of them are less important, but it describes the sort of frazzled nature. And what I was trying to show was, yes, you want to focus on the stone in your shoe, but you have to zoom back out, because some of these current stones in our shoes we can't get rid of. Mm-hmm. And the problem for founders and for investors especially, and for businesses, is that if you don't detach a little bit, you're going to miss what's coming, and you're going to start making terrible decisions, which is exactly what happens when we're focused like that.
Yeah, I think that's something that would resonate with a lot of entrepreneurs in the room. Just generally speaking, you're all putting out fires all the time. You're not necessarily, what's the idea is you're working in the business, not on the business. And so this is pretty common, but I guess the idea is that it's happening more. So.
It is, but I've got a really great example. So I was with a bunch of investors in a meeting, investors and bankers and some folks, on the day that the news about DeepSeek came out. Mm-hmm. And we're in a closed door meeting, and I saw one person's head goes down, and another person they're looking at their phone suddenly, and I was like, one of us turned off our phone the way we were supposed to. So what is everybody looking at, right? What just happened? And the next people were like, hey, there's this thing called DeepSeek. It's Chinese, it's an AI, and they built it for free, and it didn't take any compute, and should we dump NVIDIA?
Oh, no.
Literally. Yeah. And I'm like, no, If I was you, I'm not here to give investment advice, but what's wrong with you? No, you don't dump NVIDIA. But this just, and then some of them did.
Yeah.
But this describes the current situation that we are in, which is it feels like so much is happening all the time. It feels like everybody's missing everything. That people are making the wrong decisions. And again, that's part of this cognitive impairment that I think everybody is dealing with. For entrepreneurs, yeah, you have to focus on the business and build the business and everything else. For investors, you need to make the right decisions. But ultimately, everybody has to zoom out now and again and see what else is happening out there. So you're not just focused on every single second.
Right. This idea of planning during uncertainty is really, really vital, I imagine.
Sure. So paradoxically, the more uncertainty there is, the less planning that happens.
I bet.
But that's
because you don't know how to plan. Well, you don't know what the future is.
Everybody knows how to planning is not a hard thing to do. There's a method. If you have a methodology and you know how to do research.
I'm going to ask you about future.
I'll be happy to tell you. But before we were living through these polycrises, companies used to do the longer term planning, and they should. But those planning cycles have shrunk from a decade to 5 years. 2 years is like the distant Star Trek future for a lot of companies. For the most part, it's quarter to quarter. And if that is the cycle that you are stuck in, you are always going to be behind, always. So even during times of soul-crushing deep uncertainty, which describes where we are right now, you still have to do the long-term planning.
Yeah. So speaking of trends and what to look out for, you kindly summarized a portion of trends in your talk. I think you identified about 10 of them. One of them was about colonizing space and how a new economy is going to start up between the moon and the Earth. That's fascinating, and I want to hear more. But I also wonder, based on those trends, what are some that you think are really relevant for entrepreneurs, or maybe even more near term than the others?
Well, the first thing I'll say about trends is that trends aren't trendy. And a lot of people get confused about the purpose that a trend would serve. A trend is longitudinal, and it describes what we can know in the present. Mm-hmm. You have to combine what we can know with what we can't know. Those are uncertainties. Those are areas over which no one entity has total control. So the economy. Right now, nobody has control. Maybe tomorrow, I don't know. I don't know if you saw the news earlier today about inflation. Separate conversation we'll have another time.
I've been to Founder's House all day, by the way. I have not.
There was a crazy, crazy answer that Trump gave this morning when asked about inflation. There was no teleprompter. You saw this, right? There's no teleprompter, so he's totally off script. And he literally said, maybe inflation. And the markets took a nosedive.
Wow.
So you can look at that up. That's fun.
I will.
You can look that up later on. But you asked me about what do you do with a trend or what trends are important.
What trends might be the more relevant ones?
So it depends on where you are. So in our tech trends report, these are all long-term. It's 1,000 pages long. There's 700 trends. Some of that's analysis and scenarios and things. And they're divided into different industries. So I think probably everybody at this point needs to be somewhat aware of what's happening in AI. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know everybody is very excited about agentic AI. They love to talk about that. But there is a life beyond agentic AI. So
can you tell us what that is, please?
It's just a buzzword. It basically means having individual smaller systems doing tasks for you. But it sounds cool when people
I see.
agent.
Yeah. You can customize it. Yeah.
Yes, but now we're calling it agentic AI, and that's a whole thing. And if you're a founder and you need to pivot, just pivot to whatever your name is .agentic.ai, and you'll have the money. But how the systems are taking in data and what the data ingestion systems are, that matters for any business, regardless of what kind of business you are. So I would look at that. I would also probably be paying attention to things related to supply chain, which really impacts everybody. And some of that has to do with automation. Some of it has to do with tracking. So those are the fundamentals that matter to every business. For us, blockchain-y stuff, metaverse-y stuff, less important.
I was thinking that. You have a whole, I mean, obviously metaverse is still there.
Sure, but we refer to these as metaversal technologies versus the metaverse itself. So something like diminished reality, which is instead of augmenting or adding to information, it's taking it away. There's an enormous, that has wide applications across so many different industries. So rather than like tracking the metaverse, which I wouldn't bother with, something like diminished reality would be very impactful for lots of different startups and founders.
Yeah, there was also this thing about action models overtaking language models.
Yeah.
And that somehow jumped out at me. I mean, it seems pretty actionable, So can you give us an idea of how that plays out and what that looks like?
Sure. So a large action model is built to describe what we might say next or write next. So that's useful to some degree. But a large action model describes what we might do next or what the behavior might be, what the action might be. And that's important because at the moment, the AI models that we have can like replicate writing, and they do that fast. It's not necessarily great, but it works. It's not, it wouldn't replace what you do. It doesn't replace, from my point of view, it doesn't replace journalism at all. But for there to be application for AI in medicine, in, I'm trying to, like, eyewear, basically any other area that any founder, might be interested in, you need more than that text. And so that's where the large action model comes into play.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Amy explains to Diana why we don't talk about the word Web 2.0 anymore.
What does the future hold for business? Can someone invent a crystal ball? Until then, over 42,000 businesses are future-proofing with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 AI cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one platform. With real-time insights and forecasting, NetSuite helps you anticipate the future so you can set sights on your next phase of growth. Get your free product tour at netsuite.com/inc5000.
Do you remember like the Web 2.0 thing? Right. When was the last time you talked about Web 2.0?
No, it's been a while.
It's been a while, right. Because it just is, right? So we don't talk about the Web 2.0 anymore.
We do it in headlines a lot. So it kind of...
Still?
Yeah, it's like something 2.0.
Oh, but I'm specifically talking about the internet. So Web 2.0.
Okay.
So yeah, exactly, right? So this would have described, that was a big thing at South by about 10 years ago. So the social media, social platforms went into the sort of Web 2.0 idea. That just describes how the internet is now. We don't actually use that word anymore, to the point where, like, if I say that to a lot of people, they don't even know what I'm talking about. So when we talk about large language models, I think in a couple of years, we won't be talking about them at all. You know what I mean? So
like they'll just be omnipresent, and we just
like nobody, like, when was the last time you used HTTP in a sentence, right? We don't say it anymore. It's implied. Because it describes how much that technology has evolved. So I know that large language models feel like the big thing right now, and so does agentic AI. But AI has a very long evolutionary track, and it's a very long horizon technology. So again, this is really important because you have to track what the things that come next. So large action models, and I could go on and on. There's multi-agent systems, and there's a whole new protocol that describes the interplay between AI and robotics and sensors. That's sort of like the HTTP for this new robotics AI ecosystem, and on and on.
I mean, I love that you mentioned the enhanced games in your talk.
I am fascinated by the enhanced games.
Enhanced games is crazy. Have you all heard about this? Amy, tell us.
Gladly. So I don't even remember where I heard about this. It was a total accidental click. So I follow no sports with balls. I follow or any right. So my only I race. I'm a cyclist. I compete. The only sport that I pay attention to is pro cycling, which I know this is going to shock everybody, but it's been plagued by doping over the years. And I know other sports, same thing. So, and it's, whatever. You're looking at these athletes, and it's not fun to know that, like, they're winning because they're taking steroids or whatever. So imagine my surprise, delight, horror when I find this website that's called, so it's advertising the enhanced games. And the point of this is to get athletes to get jacked up, to take tons of steroids and to do research. This is totally true. Research on human enhancement, gene editing, whatever it takes. Basically create superhumans to the point where you can still send them out to compete. They don't die, probably. That's what this is. And who's founded this? It's like VCs and tech bros who are like, let's go. So they're literally out. They're out of the closet making superhumans now. And there's a gladiator style games where they're all gonna compete against each other at some point this year.
This is I can't. This is like must see TV. Frankly, I can't wait.
I could not make this up, right? But it does beg the question. So now what? Like, we've moved beyond the sort of rules that the way society has always operated. So on the one hand, if you're an entrepreneur, you're like, cool, giant new white space for me potentially. But on the other side of this, what does this mean going forward?
Right. For society and in general. I know you teach an entire class about this, but I wonder if you could kind of talk to us a little bit about strategic foresight. And as an entrepreneur or business owner, you're thinking like, okay, I can tell something's going to happen, but how do you know how to plan for something if you can suspect something's happening? Like, what is strategic foresight?
Sure. So I developed and teach a course at NYU Stern. So it's an MBA class on strategic foresight. And I know that when you're a founder, you are literally just trying to keep the lights on. You're just trying to keep your head down and keep things moving. I, too, at one point was a founder. So I founded my company 20 years ago. I took no investment. We just brute force grew the thing. No debt, no investment.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So if any of you are on the fence, it can be done. You just have to have a strong stomach and a spouse who doesn't divorce you when the going gets tough. So what is strategic foresight? There's sort of a max and a min model. On the face of it, it is using a rigorous methodology along with a lot of data and research to track how things are moving, and ultimately create strategies that are forward thinking. So the idea here isn't to predict exact futures, it's to be ready for anything. And on the min side of that, as a founder, what that means is not just tracking what your competitors are doing, it's looking for adjacent signals to your company or your product or whatever it is that you're doing so that you are ready to figure out what that value chain is, the value network that you operate in, and where you're going to play, win, and be resilient. On the max side of things, there are companies that we work with that have entire divisions that do foresight that are situated horizontally across the company that do everything from helping executive leadership teams know the right time to make a decision about something, to informing the pipeline for talent and hiring and development, to new product development and so forth and so on.
Wow. Obviously, it's a big topic, and you teach an entire class about it. So I'm grateful you went through that with us. Now, you also in your talk you mentioned this quote from Vladimir Lenin, a Russian revolutionary.
Can we give some context though, so you're not just like Amy Webb loves those communists?
No, I'm going to give the context. So the idea is that there's this quote where he says like there are decades that feel like nothing happens, and then there are weeks that feel like decades. And, the last 6 or 7 weeks have just happened, and it feels like a lot of change all at once. And so that quote feels very apt right now. And I'd just love to have you kind of talk to us about, leading a company through uncertain times like this.
Sure. And what it looked like I was going to do was start with a quote from John Lennon, and then I switched it up and quoted Vlad instead. So part of what we're experiencing, I think, is sort of stochastic nature of these moments in history where there's a lot of inflection points all happening at the same time. So we've got inflection points in technology. We have very quickly changing global order in terms of geopolitics. We have economic uncertainty in ways that maybe doesn't map to what we've seen historically. So this creates a lot of chaos. And as a business person, as a founder, that type of uncertainty is really tricky because oftentimes you're just skirting by. And if there's one tiny screw up in the supply chain or like if you're in California, good luck. The regulatory landscape there is tough because you've got federal and state fighting each other, and it's similar story in different countries. And again, this is to bring it back to the stone in the shoe thing. You have to maintain sort of a focus on the farther future, and it's more important than ever to know exactly where you're going, and to be somewhat flexible on how you're going to get to that place, which I think is a place where a lot of founders mess up. Either they're trying to go in this linear, like from here to there, and if we have to, falter, then things fall apart, or there's a quick pivot, or the worst part, investors get itchy, and they want to see a change.
Right.
And there's going to be a lot of that right now because there's so many factors that seem to be changing at once. So it's an emotional time, but it's the most important time to use foresight to continue working forward.
At that, Amy, thank you so much. That's all the time we have.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's all for this episode of From the Ground Up. Our producers are Blake Odom and Avery Miles, with help from Sam Gebauer and Hawa Otori. Editing by Matt Toder. Mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres. If you haven't already, subscribe to all Ink podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.